Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, I urge you to share the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. Share with a peer or someone who loves coffee. Spread the show. It's how we grow. Make sure you're subscribed and give us a good rating and review, if you would, please. Thank you. Today we have, a new guest for this show, although it's somebody who I've been working closely with, done other content with him over at My Healthy Patient, which you guys have heard about. But today we have to speak all about allergies and the world of immunity. We have Dr. Layton on the line. How you doing, Dr. Layton?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for coming on. Now, I want to introduce you properly. I know you're an allergy specialist, but you are also a licensed pediatrician, if I have that right. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's been quite a career. I practiced for 48 years, and I am a board-certified pediatrician. So I practiced pediatrics from 1972 to 1987. And from 1987 until late September 2020, I was involved in a different type of allergy practice that basically, which I'll explain, involves seeing children and adults with not only the typical allergy problems, but also medical problems that I felt weren't well addressed by mainstream medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, children with autism, hyperactivity, very often medication is the answer. And I found that nutrition, getting good allergy history, et cetera, could be very helpful. Gastrointestinal problems for any age group, fatigue in adults are good examples of issues I've addressed for quite a while now.
Wow.
And as I'll explain as we go on, allergies are more than the nose, eyes, skin, and lungs.
No kidding.
And I'll explain that.
Please, yeah, I would love for you to dive into some of that because that's news. A lot of us think allergies, we think seasonal allergies, we get sneezy, we get runny. You're saying this can go right down to psychological problems, neurological problems, behavioral problems, even autism, you said. Wherever you want to start, please dig into how allergies go deeper than just a runny nose.
Let me go into my background a little bit.
Oh, sure, please.
What happened to me, because I was practicing as a mainstream pediatrician for 15 years. But my interest in allergies actually started my first year in medical school when I was very stressed out. And I had a severe asthma attack, but it was during the Christmas holidays.
Oof.
But I was blue in the face. That shot of epinephrine, I've been interested in asthma and allergies ever since.
That's incredible.
So as an intern, student intern, resident, pediatrician, I always spent extra time going over allergies. And I've always been a good listener, realizing that parents knew their children better than I did. So I encouraged parents to give me a detailed history, and it was okay with me to question what I was doing. Mm. So what happened in that 15-year time frame was parents were comfortable enough to say, why all the antibiotics for ear infections? Or why is it automatic that a child who has ADHD goes on medication?
Right.
My background in nutrition was practically zero, and I still feel that medical schools are really missing teaching students the importance of nutrition. So 2 children changed my life. I started to read about nutrition, and I had a child with headaches, migraine headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And when pediatricians, neurologists don't find anything on exam or labs, x-rays, it's all automatically psychosomatic. So I had read that a crave food could be a problem food. And after the very good pediatric neurologist said psychosomatic, I said to the mother, is there something your son is eating on a regular basis that you haven't told me about? And she said, well, he loves peanut butter. I said, take him off for 10 days.
Jeez.
Well, she called me in 7 days and said, you are a genius. He hasn't had a migraine since
That's
he went off peanut
insane.
butter.
Crave foods related to migraines? So the
Crave
things.
foods
Whoa.
and migraines. And then I've been doing more reading that milk and wheat aren't really that good for you. And
Right.
I had a child who had severe abdominal pain. And in the 70s, you could put kids in the hospital for a week. You can't do that now. But all the different doctors who saw this child couldn't find anything wrong, again, with examining and x-rays, etc. And when leaving, she had a diagnosis of psychosomatic abdominal pain. I said to the mother, I've noticed that your daughter is drinking a lot of milk. Why don't you just take her off for 10 days? And there went the abdominal pain.
Jesus.
So I really had to question the way I was practicing. And the more I read and learned about nutrition, the more disenchanted I was with the way I was practicing medicine.
Wow.
So it was a very bold step for, I was a very good pediatrician, but I just went into allergies, and that's my story.
Jeez, that's incredible, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's powerful, and I see why you have such a passion for it, with your own personal story and then revamping the way you treat your patients. That's incredible, man.
It has not gone over very well with mainstream medicine, but I've always been patient-oriented, and I know I'm right.
Well, I think that you were on the forefront of that, and I can tell you from this show that I think that's changing slowly. I think that's changing, man. So maybe I'm sure you were part of that, that shift, that overall shift. Let's dig into it, though, man. Talk to me about some of the most fascinating effects of allergies that we might not think about, some of the other conditions that are linked.
Well, why don't I do this first? Just give a quick, less than 5-minute course on allergies.
Yeah, crash course, because I feel like I don't know anything anymore.
This will be a crash course. Now, what's universally accepted is allergies involving the nose, called allergic rhinitis, eyes, allergic conjunctivitis, skin, atopic, which means allergic dermatitis, and lungs, asthma.
Okay.
And the IgE is the allergy antibody attached to mast cells, which are most prominent in these areas: nose, eyes, skin, and lungs. So what's generally accepted is what I just mentioned.
That's the allergies, right?
Next, if someone has more problems with typical allergies in the spring, early spring, let's say March, April into May, it's trees. Grasses are more April through June. In the fall, if it's late August to in early September, it's ragweed and weeds to the first frost. Molds or change of season, and also increase in the spring and the fall. Winter with early on, with leaves falling in late fall, then the heat on, molds are a problem. Molds are a problem inside and out all the time, but there's certain times they're worse. And up until about 5 to 10 years ago, summer was like the month off. That's changed. Why? I think it's climate change. That's a big problem. And
it's affected allergies, in your opinion?
Well,
of course
never saw trees in the fall. Now there's trees and grass in the fall. There's weeds in the spring. There's everything in the summer. So it's pretty bad. So we have to think about climate change, and year-round allergies are dust mites, mold, and food.
Right.
Then you get the food allergies. What everybody accepts is a severe food allergy, such as a peanut allergy, shellfish, egg, can be life-threatening. But there's also, and it's my opinion, that a number of individuals of any age can be hypersensitive to food, and the big five, I would say, are milk, wheat, soybean, egg, and corn.
Whoa.
Now, in our polluted environment, we have more chemical problems. So there's formaldehyde, hydrocarbons. The food supply is a nightmare with the food additives,
Right.
preservatives, GMOs. The car exhaust, one positive thing about COVID, but usually there's bad car exhaust.
A little less exhaust. That's true. But you're right. It's coming at us from all angles. Glyphosate and all the sprays, and that has to be contributing too. Yeah. Wow.
So, and then with asthma, there are multiple triggers, and that's what the importance of a history. So from a history, is it exercise induced? Are infections involved? Pollen seasons, mold, dust mites, environmental pollution, increased infections, cats and dogs. And there are more, but I think everybody gets the idea.
Jeez.
With allergic eczema, if it's in the elbow creases and or behind the knees, it has to be allergic dermatitis. But this problem could be anywhere on the body, the most common areas being the hand, feet, wrist, head, and trunk.
Sure.
Then you have hives. The fancy name is urticaria. And unless it's a severe food reaction, this is a very tough diagnosis to make. Mm-hmm. But I mention it because it does occur. So I did that pretty fast, but
no,
just
that was good.
To give you an overview.
That was a good overview. And my wife gets the hives. I got some of those. So that is the kind of overview of the allergy world as accepted.
Yeah. Now you get into what's not accepted and why I would be called by most allergists a pseudo-allergist. It's my opinion that someone with increased allergies can have a number of symptoms head to toe. This would include headaches, including migraines, decreased attention, and the key question with ADHD, with medication, not medication, if a child's attention, impulsivity, and or hyperactivity vary, probably don't need a medication.
Oh, if it varies, meaning it goes up and down. Okay.
Yeah, if it goes up and down, there's something else going on. So you need to look at what's this child eating.
Whoa.
How's this child being affected by the time of year? If the attention is consistently, as well as the ADHD issues, consistently issues, more likely to require medication.
Sure.
So the meds for ADHD, they're great. They're just amazing, horribly overused.
Yeah.
People with brain fog, you need to look at it. Mood, behavior, depression, tired adults, muscle and joint pain, increased infection, sleep disorders, gastrointestinal problems, even tics. I've seen a number, especially children, who are diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, and which is a neurologic problem, and there is Tourette syndrome. But I've seen a number of individual children who have allergy-induced tics. So it's not always Tourette's.
That's wild.
Yeah.
This is just wild. Is this, and so much of it has to do with diet, is this a microbiome issue? Do you feel that the allergic reaction is upsetting the biome?
Absolutely. I'd have to rank the brain as number one, but the second most important organ is the gut. It has the second highest neurons or nerve cells after the brain, and the gut-brain connection is real. I've known about it a long time. It's true. Thank God, the last 5 or 10 years, it's now being accepted that the gut microbiome is indeed a medical issue.
Absolutely. And this seems to be playing right into that. It makes a ton of sense. Just eye-opening. Wow. Okay, so where do you want to go with this? I would love to talk about maybe testing, or if you want to if you want to go into how we can kind of improve our allergenic health. I don't know where you want to take this.
I'll do both. With allergy testing, the scratch testing, which is making a little scratch on the skin and applying the problem, whether it's a pollen, mold, dust, cat, food. Uh, this testing is usually okay for dust mites, pollens, cat and dog. In my opinion, misses a lot of molds and foods.
Oh,
So many allergists say your child or you, the adult, do not have a mold or food problem based on scratch testing. Intradermal testing, which is actually ingesting the allergen just under the skin, is a more sensitive test, and you'll get bigger reactions to pollens, dust mites, cat, dog, but it also may pick up molds and foods.
mm,
So those are the basic tests, scratch and intradermal. Then you have the blood test called RAST. I had mentioned RAST before,
right.
or IgE. This measures IgE. So a total IgE should be under 100. If it's over 100, more likely to have allergies. And this test is very good
Hmm.
as a scratch testing for cat, dog, pollens, dust mites. If it shows molds, molds are a bigger problem than it's showing. And if it shows foods, that's the case.
Wow.
But again, the RAS test, not as good for molds and foods. And that's why the history is so key for those areas.
I was going to say, it seems like really the only thing you can do is take this into your own hands and start tracking and start documenting what you eat and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've always encouraged parents, be a detective. You know your child better than the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That includes me. And my job has always been to rely on the parents for the medical history and get into their heads, because a good listening doctor is much more likely to help the patient.
Absolutely. That's so true. So obviously taking control of our diet, documenting our diet. What about this other, for instance, you mentioned molds and all these environmental problems. Is it about living an allergen-free life, or is the exposure okay? We need to limit it, more fresh air. How do we need to be approaching this, and what are some steps we can take to kind of increase our allergen health, for lack of a better term?
I'm just going to do some basics, and if you have other questions, just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to look at your home first and the flooring. Now, preferably no carpet, but if there's carpet, not a high carpet, but a low pile carpet. And if you do have carpet, vacuuming at least once a week, preferably hardwood linoleum floors. Area rugs should be washed weekly. Bedding, mattress, pillow encasings, box springs should be encased. No feathers. Cotton is the best fabric. This is a tough one for many, but the less clutter, the more likely, the less house dust and dust mite.
Mm.
And that's a very allergic problem. Actually, my biggest problem.
Wow.
Good air filtration, air HEPA filters are good. During pollen season, close the window. Set spring and fall. And a good question that everybody should ask about themselves and their family: if you're better inside than outside, you probably have a pollen, maybe a mold problem. If you're better outside, then you probably have a mold dust problem.
Inside, that makes sense. So if you suddenly you're breathing and you're thinking everything feels better when you're not in the house, I understand that the way we build houses here is not optimal, and it harbors all sorts of stale air and mold and is bad for our health. And the ovens that we run, I heard. So you're kind of playing into some of the stuff that I've heard, which is make sure your house is breathable and livable to begin with.
Absolutely. And cleaning the air ducts at least every 5 years is important. With basements where mold resides. Dehumidifiers are helpful. So there are a lot of things you can do for the house. One of the problems, mold is a much more common problem, and I've had constant complaints over the years with families who are very sensitive to mold. So the problem with sick building syndrome, which I've known about since 1987, there's more knowledge about it, but it's still much more than is generally realized.
Yeah, that's the case with these things, and then it becomes part of our kind of consciousness, and then it becomes part of our life, and then it becomes just a standard part of medicine. I feel like we give little to no kind of thought to our air quality and our home quality and our allergen quality outside of, like you said, pollen and a couple things here or there. I think this is going to be a big game changer. Before we wrap it up, let me ask you a couple quick questions. This is the Coffee Health and Science podcast. I got to ask you about coffee. What are some of the strangest, most rare allergies you've seen? And follow-up question, have you seen people who are allergic to coffee?
Yeah, coffee had a bad name for a long time. And now it's actually good for you.
Right.
Personally, I cannot. I've had one cup of coffee, and that was to sober me up from friends.
You sound too chill to drink coffee. I don't think coffee is your beverage.
No, I don't think I need it, but I just don't like the taste. But it actually is very good for you, and the information that you've covered by others,
right?
And it's important. So yeah, I'm gonna go without it. I feel good enough.
So you're good to go, but
good.
You're good to go. But as far as
I do recommend it.
Yeah. What about some rare allergies? Some ones that you've seen where, wow, I've never seen this before, or does nothing surprise you anymore?
Actually, nothing really surprises me, but I have to say, I've learned so much being a pediatrician. There are a number of people who have compared me to a veterinarian, but what veterinarians and pediatricians have in common is you really have to observe.
Yeah, they can't articulate.
Infants.
Yeah, they can't articulate.
Infants. And you really have to read. Like I used to, when I was practicing pediatrics, I'd be walking by going to see someone who was in for a regular checkup, and I'd just look in rooms, and I could just spot it. So that I found very helpful, is the power of observation. What's helped me even more is seeing so many autistic children since 1995, because they can't tell you what's going on. You have to rely on the parents.
Right.
But I found my powers of observation. I could just read when a child came in.
That's incredible.
How severe the problem would be. So I'm kind of stumped to say something that really surprised me.
You've seen it all, man. You've been practicing for a long time. You have to dig back far.
Yeah.
Man, I love it though, Dr. Layton. This was a wonderful exploration. I really didn't expect to have it be this eye-opening and kind of game-changing. So thank you so much for doing this. And is there anywhere we can send my listeners? Of course, My Healthy Patient, the project that me and Dr. Layton are working on with Dr. Coffee, and you guys will hear more about that. Anything else you want to throw out there for the listeners to get at?
Well, with the My Healthy Patient, I am so happy to be involved with this group. It's a way of reaching the doctor-patient relationship, especially during this COVID pandemic nightmare that we've all been living.
Right.
But it's a way to really educate physicians and give them a means of a closer communication with their patients.
Absolutely.
So to be one of the 3 medical directors, this is really great that in retirement, I'm really enjoying keeping my medical brain alive and hopping, and I just think it's going to be great.
Absolutely. Me too. And you know what? I'm so glad that you come on a show like this in your retirement and share such wonderful information with lots of physicians who actually listen to this show. And then also hundreds and hundreds of just regular old folks who want to improve their life and want to know more about health and allergies. So thank you, Dr. Layton. This was just a wonderful exploration.
I just want to say one more thing.
Please.
I went into medicine, frankly, not because of my love of science. I just wanted to be a doctor to help people feel better. So to your listening audience, I'm fine with their emailing me, my email in lowercase, and my name is Richard, and I'm going to be 78, but I never did grow up. So it's Dickie Layton, DICKIELAYTON @gmail.com. Just mention an email that you're involved with Jordan's podcast, and I'll be glad to answer your questions.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Layton. We appreciate you. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. This is Dr. Layton and Jordan River signing off saying, have an extraordinary day, and we'll see you next time on the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast.